হাকিম ভাই একটু ইয়ে করেন রেকর্ডিংটা, থ্যাংক ইউ। ওকে, তাসফিয়া।
জি ম্যাম।
So then I'm starting right now. Okay.
Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum and good evening, everyone. I am Tasfia Saba, welcoming you all to the first forum of the 4th DEH Curriculum Integration Program Fall 2021. Every semester, the department chooses a theme for the students to work with in conjunction with the courses they are taking. The theme this semester is Sustainability and Development, Academia Meets Practice. Before students begin to work on their projects, 2 forums are arranged where experts on the subject matter help students gain an understanding of the topic. Our guest speaker at today's first forum is Dr. Hasib Mohammad Irfanullah. Sir, thank you so much for being with us. To now formally start our event, may I request our Honorable Pro Vice Chancellor and Dean of the School of Arts and Humanities, Professor Samshad Murtuza, to address the audience. Sir.
Thank you so much. So this is actually Dr. Hasib's show, so I am here to listen to him. I'm a big fan of Hasib Bhai, and this is a very pertinent topic for all of us because we are signatory to the 2030 agenda and also the Sustainable Development Goals, and especially at ULAB because so we are committed to sustainable development. We are one of the first universities to have sustainability incorporated in our mission and vision, to have a research center dedicated to this issue. And of course, as a citizen, as netizen, so we have the added responsibility of taking care of our community, of our surrounding, our environment, and of course, our world. So thank you, Hasib Bhai, for agreeing to do this. The idea is very simple. We would like to have some praxis. So it's not only theory, we want to put theory into practice. And I am excited about the possibility of seeing our students, so using sustainability ideas in their projects. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your insightful and encouraging words. We will now begin with the first forum. Our guest speaker, Dr. Hasib Mohammad Irfanullah, is a research fellow at the Center for Sustainable Development, CSD, here at ULAB, and has dedicated his life to research from freshwater ecosystems to climate change adaptation to poverty technology linked to wildlife conservation to research communication. He is an expert in capacity building to nature-based solutions. Dr. Irfanullah has worked for different international development organizations, academic institutions, donors, and the government of Bangladesh in different capacities, all focusing on the well-being of humans and nature. He is also engaged with several global mentoring programs involving students, young researchers, and professionals. So let us learn from Sir now about the importance of Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, and how these powerful goals today will dictate our future tomorrow. Sir, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you can hear me and see my screen as well.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Tasfia, for nice introduction. Thank you very much, Professor Samshad Murtuza, and of course, Arif Appa, for having me in this fantastic forum. I have heard of it, but I think I attended a couple, throughout last year or so. But I never thought that I would be getting chance to say something. And I'm a bit nervous seeing that the participant list is growing, although Arif Appa told me that it will be 150, now it has crossed 160. But I'm also quite excited. So pick some ground rules. I will not be the only one who will be talking. So I would be requesting the students, please feel free to unmute your microphone whenever there is a question popped on the slide, and I would be requesting you to just share your thoughts. Feel free, don't feel shy. And of course, faculty members, they can also join sharing their thoughts if students are not feeling that much encouraged. We understand that today's forum is all about, and there will be another session later this month, it is all about sustainability or sustainable development or development which is sustainable. While thinking of this particular session, I was just thinking how to approach a large group of rather young, exciting individuals, my students, dear students. I don't want to talk to them, sustainability. They can always Google it. So what's the meaning of asking them definition or sharing them definitions? What about talking about the history of sustainability? We can do that, but I thought that let me share some of my thoughts while I am sharing these slides with you. So my title is, I'm searching for some connections. Sustainability to me is all about making connections. And you will see that the issues that I will be talking about, the examples I will be giving to you, I hope that I will be making those as simple as possible because I understand not everybody has got a similar background and similar understanding. We are talking about from first and third semester up to 11th semester. As Tashfia said, that I have worked on different issues. As a biologist, I started my career as a biologist. So I worked in the environment field. Later on, I worked in development sector, in NGOs. Now I am with academia as well. So I would like to share some of my thoughts in the next few slides. We often hear these words, sustainability, sustainable development, just transition. There are so many different ways to explain those or define those words. But do we really need a concept like sustainable development? Without going into the textbook definition, if we just think of the word sustainable and development, do we need to put this together? I can still remember quite a few years back, one person was challenging the whole definition or concept of sustainable development. He was saying that if a development is sustainable, then how can we call it development? Because development is supposed to be progressing. It is not supposed to be sustaining. So he was kind of translating the exact word or trying to define the exact word. I would like to ask my first question to you. What is your thought? Do we really need a concept like sustainable development? What do you think of the word or the term sustainable development? Any volunteer? Anyone? Just.
Sir, Assalamu
Yes,
alaikum.
please.
Sir, I would like to say that development does not always need to be progressive. It can be sustainable in a way that the development is as such that it does not do harm, but rather is good for us, for our society, for our environment, and etc.
Thank you. Thank you, Tasneem. Thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. I would like to go for one more. Any volunteer? The second volunteer?
Sir, can I add something?
Please, Jannatul.
Sir, the research we do or the steps we take that exist for a long time, that is the sustainable and development is that process is need more that requires more justifications, or if it needs more research to do in further, so we can do so. So the any kind of activity that has to sustain, so that is the development also.
Thank you, both of you. we saw a few words that we were talking about continuation. We are talking about progressing, changing our status for betterment. Sanchita talked about research or gathering knowledge and evidence to go forward. So there are so many different ways to define development or sustainable development. The textbook definition of the sustainable development used to be very simple. It talked about the development that is not only satisfying or meeting the need of the present generation, while doing so, it is not compromising the future generation. It means if we are extracting resources too much, it might be depleted, so the future generation might not be able to harvest it, harness it, or use it. So there is a need for continuation. There is a need for going beyond the present, going to the future. But if we consider the points that Sanchita and Tasneem mentioned, I think we may agree upon that we need sustainable development as a concept, because there are three reasons for that. Very quickly, we mentioned that one of the students mentioned that our environment is degrading. We are not actually using the natural resources that sustainably. We are over harvesting, overusing. This photograph is from Amazon. Just see the stark difference two parts. How dense the forest is supposed to be, but how much destruction it has been facing still now. So our environmental footprint is really, really bad. It is not only forest, think of fish, think of other natural resources. The second point is inequality in our wealth. It is said that only 3% of global resources, or in terms of wealth, is being managed by or belong to around 70% of the population of the world, while less than 1% is enjoying more than 40%. Just imagine the inequality. So we need to do something about it. The other point is there are so many challenges. We often call them societal challenges. Not everybody is getting their food, sufficient food. Not everybody is getting clean drinking water or sanitation, education, you just name it. So there are so many societal challenges around us. And sometimes when we plan, we don't only plan, we often plan on a short-term basis, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years. But we often forget about the next generation, how to think in a longer term rather than short term. So if we have these kind of approaches, which is negative, this kind of challenges around us, we need to ensure that it is good, or definitely we need to progress. We need to ensure our human and environmental well-being, but we need to think of transgenerational equity and justice. Ensuring justice and equity this generation doesn't make sense. You have to think of the future, and you are very much aware that we are seeing youth over the last 4 years or so. They are fighting for climate action, isn't it? All over the world, including Bangladesh. It is because whatever we are doing as an adult, we are actually destroying or not taking enough action to save the world from climate change, which will eventually will affect the next generation, not us. So that kind of transgenerational issue need to be thought of. So we need to think of not only now, but also the future. And we need a concept, or if I dare to call it a philosophy, we need to have a philosophy like sustainable development, just to guide our thoughts, to plan properly and act accordingly. That's why we need sustainable development as a concept. But only concept is not enough. That's why we need to what to call it, gather our thoughts and translate it into action. And that one thing happened in 2015, around September at that time. All the global leaders, they came together and they agreed upon one document one framework, which is called United Nations Sustainable Development Goals Framework. It is popularly known as SDGs, and we all know that acronym. What does it do? It actually brings together all the societal challenges, not only, we may call it all the social, economic, environmental concerns, but also inspire us how to overcome those concerns or challenges. What they did, there are so many different ways to explain Sustainable Development Framework, but the figure that you can see on this slide, it shows that there are 17 numbers from 1 to 17. And each of these squares are actually representing one of the Sustainable Development Goal. I will not mention the number, I'm just going from 1 to 17. The first one is talking about poverty. We don't want poverty anymore, but we also need food security. That is number 2. We need good health. We need education. Our gender equality hasn't been achieved, so we need gender equality. What about water sanitation? Yes, we need clean drinking water. What about energy? Yes, our energy has to be affordable as well as clean, because climate change is being happening because of how we use our fossil fuel. Number 8 is all about employment, economic growth. Number 9 is about infrastructure, innovation, and industry, which is very much needed for our growth. 10 is inequality need to be reduced at all the aspects of the society. 11 is urban areas. 12 is consumption. We need to consume responsibly, and our production system has to be responsible as well. Number 13, I have just mentioned climate action, and it is linked with others, as we may understand. 14 and 15 are the areas where I used to work quite closely, which is biodiversity. 14 is aquatic biodiversity, which I studied quite a few years back. And 15 is the forests, mangroves, and whatever we have on land, hill forests. Number 16 is justice, peace, and institution. You can call it a governance, the theme, the whole SDG on governance. And 17 is bringing everything together. It is talking about collaboration, global, national, regional, you just name it, so that we can achieve 1 to 16. So there are so many different indicators, targets under these 17 goals. But these, in a nutshell, are the 17 SDGs. But when we talk about sustainable development, there are, in fact, 3 different chunks, pillars. And this diagram, in fact, shows that one is biosphere. It means environment, ecology, biodiversity. The second tier is society, all the societal issues, employment, energy, food, equity, all are there. And the top one is economy. That's why we are seeing 8, 9, 10, and 12 there. Of course, 17 is overarching. That's why it is on the top. So you can see that there is interconnection between all the SDGs. One is influenced by other. How you urbanize, how you expand your cities, it is linked with biology, biodiversity, ecology. It is also linked with economic growth. Just an example. So I would like to say that we can say SDG is a framework, one framework to guide them, one framework to guide them all, one framework to keep them, one framework to bring them all, and in the hope point. Can anyone tell me that I have stolen it from somewhere else? Of course, it is not, the original text is not like that.
Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings.
Very good. Well done. Yes. Of course, I haven't read the whole book. It's huge. But I have seen all the 3 movies, and it is quite related to me. I went to do my PhD to the University of Liverpool. Any Liverpool fan, football fan? Not many, I guess. Anyway, And in the very first year, in December, exactly 20 years back, in December 2001, the first part of The Lord of the Rings was out. In the next year, the second part, and the third year, the third part, and the next year I came back. So I often say that the movie was released by Peter Jackson just to celebrate my stay in Liverpool. So, but it is a negative thing, isn't it? The one ring to rule them all, the one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and the darkness behind them. But definitely, SDG is not about negativity. Definitely, it talks about, it shows our challenges, but it depicts our positiveness, our aspiration to progress, to develop, not alone, just for myself, but the whole society. As Professor Murtaza said, that we have our contribution to make to take this country, society, and the world forward. But how our studying English, whether it is literature, linguistics, is related to SDG? I borrowed this text from the concept note that has been prepared for this particular curriculum integration event. And as you can see, that the red text are the examples where we can see that what we learn in the classroom can be related to our the SDG framework. Whether it is romantic poetry or writing about literature or restoration of the 18th century literature or post-colonial theories and literature, or what we learn in linguistics, like introduction to sociolinguistics or linguistics itself, the way we develop our English learning, English language teaching materials, or the English in media, or we study morphology and syntax. And if we just try to connect, oh my goodness, as you can see, they are connected to so many. Of course, not all SDGs are touched upon, as you can see, but I would like to focus on SDG 5. You see lots of arrows there. SDG 10, lots of arrows there. So it shows that what we can learn in our classroom can definitely can be related to what SDG framework actually deals with. But let us go to let us take 4 examples. Writing about literature, you see that the arrows is traveling to gender equality. It is traveling to all related to environment, like climate change, life below water, life on land. If we think of modernism, early 20th century English literature, we can see that gender equality is already there. So is how to reduce inequality and how to ensure sustainable economic growth. If you take 2 examples from linguistics topics, natural development, definitely it is related to SDG 4, which is quality education, because we are directly contributing to quality education. It is also related to how you teach the social justice, how to communicate that. That's why we see one arrow is moving, traveling to SDG 16. Same goes for introduction to linguistics, where we can see that it touches on SDG 5, 10, and of course 17, which is in fact bringing all the SDGs together, or all the actors together to achieve all the 17 SDGs. So we can see that the topics we learn can be related to SDGs. Now, in the remaining of my presentation, I would like to share with you 3 aspects of sustainable development, and I will be sharing some stories, asking you some questions. Hope you will participate and you will find it useful. The first topic I would like to talk about is sustainability is not a matter of one discipline. The second is how our education in the classroom can be related to our professions. And finally, I would go for some scale. How can we connect the national scale with global scale? These may sound quite a big thing, but I hope that you will enjoy the following slides. So first thing first, let us talk about why I'm saying sustainability is not a matter of one discipline. It is not an issue of environmental science or media and journalism studies or say engineering or botany or economics. We need to bring all together. It is everybody's responsibility. And when we try to bring more than one discipline together, we often use three terms. One is multidisciplinarity, one is interdisciplinarity, and the other is, can anyone tell me what could be the other one? Any volunteer? Other one is transdisciplinary. And these three diagrams actually shows that what do we mean by multidisciplinarity, interdisciplinarity, and transdisciplinarity. Just focus on the diagrams. In multidisciplinarity, you see, we from English department, from engineering department, from business administration, we are keeping our circle intact. We on our own contributing to the center. We are not learning from each other. We are not interacting with each other. That often happens, which is called multidisciplinary. But in case of middle diagram, you see interdisciplinarity. It means they are overlapping each other. That means they are learning from each other. They are trying to contribute. They are trying to generate new ideas. But transdisciplinary, in case of transdisciplinary action, you see, you can't identify which one is biology, which one is physics, which one is chemistry, which one is business administration, which one is English literature. Because the whole society is coming together. It means they are dealing with the problem, not a discipline. So they are trying to solve a problem. And since a problem has multidisciplinary, needs multidisciplinary approach or interdisciplinary, that's why they dissolve themselves. There is no boundary of each discipline. They become a transdisciplinary action or approach. And in case of sustainable development, we need to learn from each other. We need to bring our own understanding, but sometimes we need to see what others are thinking of a particular problem so that we can collectively solve it. Let me explain it by using a small story. Let us think of, I'm not sure whether you are aware of course you know Sirajganj, the district. There are quite a few upajilas. I am just picking randomly, not randomly exactly, Kazipur Upazila. I used to work there, and there are around 3 lakh people living there. From the Google map, you can see that the whole upazila is kind of, the boundary is within the river Jamuna, which is huge river, you know. So obviously you can understand that this particular upazila sub-district is subject to flooding every year. That's a normal phenomenon. You can see a photograph in the left corner. So let us think of the people living in Kazipur Upazila and facing flood every year. So this is a disaster that often disturbs them. Now let me focus on totally different, what do you call it, example. You may be aware of these logos, Elsevier, which is a very big publisher, you may know, Spinger, Taylor Francis, Wiley, John Wiley and Sons. They are all big academic publishers, and there are numerous academic publishers, smaller ones. These are the big ones, a few more. And the total academic publishing industry value is every year $30 billion. It's huge. But do you see any connection between the people, the community living in Kazipur and the business entities which make the academic publishing industry? Do you see anything common between them? Just a random thought you may share. What's the connection between them? What's the commonalities between them? Anyone? Okay, let me share what I think they are, how they are connected. Both are systems. One is system made up of people, definitely. Kajipur. There is a governance system. There are Upajela Porishad, Union Porishad. There are institutions, rules, regulations. You need funding to maintain this embankment. So, Kajipur Upajela, people living there, it is a system in a sense, made up of people, made up of institutions. Similarly, the publishing industry is also a system. They are made up of hundreds of small companies, but they are governed by people. They are governed by rules. They also need funding. They also need to sustain. So both are systems. That's why they are same. This is one commonality. The second is, since both are systems, they are subject to shocks and stresses. It means that natural disaster will affect both publishing industry as well as Kajipur village, like floods. Pandemic is affecting both, no doubt about it, you all know. If there is any economic recession, both will be affected. People will not be able to purchase in Kajipur because the product is very high. On the other hand, academic publisher, their market will be reduced because of economic recession. Since they are kind of similar, so if there is any disaster happens, they will also show some resilience. Can anyone tell me what do we mean by resilience? Are you familiar with this term? Anyone? Have you heard of it before? The term resilience.
The capacity for institutions. Sorry, you go first.
No, it's all right.
The capacity for institutions to survive in times of difficulty, like grit.
Very good. Very good. Yes. Anyone else would like to add anything?
I was going to say the same thing. It's just how an organization, for example, is able to sustain itself during moments of turbulence.
Thank you. Exactly. There are so
the
many
flexibility of.
Yes, you can say, Melissa, you can say that flexibility, how flexible you are to adjust to a shock, pressure, a punch.
Any organization being flexible to any kind of circumstance that may come in hand for use or help of others. Okay. In any situation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you, three of you. Yes, resilience is something like that. And you can call it bouncing back after a shock. You can call it the capacity to recover quickly from difficulties or challenges or turbulence, as our fellow students just mentioned. Just let me give you very quick 2 examples. We often say that over the last 1.5 years that our younger people have been more resilient to COVID pandemic because of their physiology, because they are quite young, quite vibrant, compared with the older generation, isn't it? So older generation is less resilient to pandemic, COVID-19, than the younger generation. On the other hand, in case of dengue, that would be other way around. Same goes for Bangladesh. Last year when COVID started, IMF, they said that Bangladesh's GDP, gross domestic productivity, will not be more than 2%. But at the end of the year, Bangladesh achieved almost 4%, which shows that Bangladesh's economy was resilient. So resilience can be individuals, it can be seen in individual, can be seen in a society, can be seen in Kajipur, can be seen in Stranger, can be seen in Wiley, can be seen in Bangladesh. So resilience is, there should be a shock, a disaster, a difficulty, but how you bounce back. So if this is the resilience, this is the definition or kind of narrative of resilience, how can you measure resilience? So it's a very interesting debate that how can you really measure that one person is resilient to something? Well, if we take this flood as a problem, what happened, I used to work for Practical Action some years back, and Zurich insurance company is a Swiss-based, very big insurance company, huge. They have a foundation, Zurich Foundation. What they did, they brought together experts from all over the world, and they said that, well, we insure different companies against different disasters, wide range of disasters. Let us measure resilience of floods. And what they did, they came up with an idea called 5C4R framework. And what they tried to do that, well, we will be measuring how community who are affected by flood, like in Kajipur, in Shirazganj, we will measure how quickly they will bounce back, how quickly they will recover. Let us do it. What they did, why it is called 5C4R, because 5C is 5 capitals: human capital, people's knowledge, education, skills. Another capital is social connection, social, the connection that I have with my family, with my friends, with my society, with my peers. Another C is physical, which is how strong is my house, how strong is my embankment. Another capital or C is natural. How is my water? How is my land? How is my air? And finally, the final capital is finance. That's why it is called human, that's what they call the 5 C's. And how much money do I have? How much investment do I have? But these 5 C's or 5 capitals are not enough. We also need to know 4 R's, how robust your system is, how much redundancy you have. Do you have plan B, plan C, plan D? How resourceful you are, how rapid you are. So that's why they call this concept, but this tool, 5C4R. It means, so in a nutshell, in different countries, experts, they came together and they developed a tool to measure how flood-affected peoples can recover fast. They can show resilience. So this is the idea. And it was developed a couple of years back. Then all of a sudden I thought early this year, okay, if this can measure the resilience of flood affected people, flood is the shock, can it be used somewhere else? Then what I did, I used the same framework and I tried to measure the resilience of these companies altogether, how they showed resilience during COVID. So you see that by taking the benefit of an existing tool, I managed to use it in a totally different setting. The point I'm trying to make is, it is always not only different disciplines will come together and they will be sharing their experiences. Sometimes you as an individual, you need to bring different disciplines in you and try to combine them and try to innovate, create something innovative that will be beneficial for your society and not only your country, but the country and the system beyond your country. So I thought that how these two are connected and how I use that experience to do something interesting, I thought I should share with you. I will be sharing this presentation with the organizers, and you will be able to click the link. All the references are hyperlinked, so you can read it. It's a very simple, short piece. You might find it interesting. The second issue I would like to talk with you is our education, what we learn in the classroom at our university, and our profession. Can anyone tell me what kind of professional opportunity do we have after being an English graduate in Bangladesh or abroad? Any example? Where can you work? In the teaching, of course, you can be a teacher, so you can work in education sector. Anything else?
So researcher,
Researcher, yes.
So publication.
Very good. Publishing
Yes, sir.
industry.
Communications.
Communications, very good. Newspaper, media. Anyone else? Let us. PR. Wow. There's so many opportunities.
Writing contents on
Writing.
sustainable development.
Okay. Okay. We have got quite a few. Let's see how many actually can match with mine. Well, I think I covered quite a few. Yes, teaching, journalism, communications, PR, content creation, editing, publishing, yes. And there are so many different sectors and industries out there, isn't it? But I was just, sometimes I wonder that as English graduates, if you enter into wider, apparently unrelated sectors, should we absorb the color of that sector within us? Or should we add color to that sector? So, I mean, will you just transform or try to, be part of the new sector or new discipline? Well, let me get into the crowd. Or you will try your best to do something what you have already learned in your classroom. Let me reframe this question. Thinking of sustainable development, since we already know that sustainable development touches all the aspects of our life. It doesn't matter because economy, social, equity, justice, everything is there. So I would like to hear your thoughts, Philip, that how can you make sure that you are contributing, you are bringing something different, something effective as an English graduate to the sector you will be working in? Any thought?
Sir, we can come up with new ideas, which we can incorporate with our current education system and try to influence our new ideas and emerge them, and we can develop something new which will be really helpful for our society and which will also contribute to the sustainable development sector, which is proper education.
Okay, that's one way to put it. Any other ideas? We have.
Every now and then there is always a problem rising. It might be population growth or like COVID. There can be many other diseases coming soon. So to be prepared for it, that can be that one thing. Taking a stand in taking all this in mind and keeping it firsthand, giving it a lesson or a plan to come up with to solve that problem.
Thank you, Melissa. Anyone can tell that what we are learning as an English graduate, how can we contribute effectively? How can we use that learning to contribute to sustainable development? We have discussed it a bit. Can give any specific example? Thank you to students who shared.
I was actually having this conversation with Samia Salim, ma'am, and she said that a problem that occurs a lot of the time is that with regards to sustainable development, there's a lot of indicators and research and data and all of that, but it does not go to the layman. Like the average person cannot really understand those things. So as English graduates, we can be kind of like the medium between these two very different areas and raise awareness.
Excellent. That's very interesting that translating the very critical scientific, very heavy, term heavy, we call it analysis, you can always translate it into for the layman, for the general people, so that they can understand what do we mean by achieving sustainable development, what are the challenges. Excellent example, Anita. Thank you very much. Anyone else want to?
Can I just add one example?
Please.
Okay, now this is very interesting because one of our colleagues, I don't know whether you have met her, Abriti Abdullah. So she has gone to Alabama for her PhD. and an entire department called design, is dedicated to do instruction for Boeing.
Wow.
So because Boeing uses so many different parts, and they need to communicate with so many different stakeholders, so starting from small parts to how to use a parachute, how to use open a knife and fork. So everything related to Boeing, so it needs to be designed, and those designs need to be communicated. So an entire department is dedicated simply for communicating design. So just like what Samia was saying, that yes, we need to break it down to small units of communication. This jargon heavy communication needs to be translated, communicated, and easily digestible. So that's something that our students can do.
Thank you very much, Shampad Bhai, for sharing this example, which is a very, very, very fascinating one, no doubt about it. Thank you, everybody. Yes, there are so many different ways we can use our knowledge, our learning, our skills. We may not know that we have that skill unless we try to use it. We need to be vigilant about it. Thank you very much, students, for sharing your thoughts and ideas. So now, finally, the last issue I wanted to talk about is global versus national. Often we see that there are certain ideas, certain concepts, certain philosophies. It seems like those are originated in the West. We may call it the global North or high-income countries. And sometimes there are there's a kind of a contested that it might be. Jaima, microphone. Thank you. So sometimes we see debates that these are new form of colonization. So they are actually what do you call it, exporting their ideas to us. I was just wondering, sustainable development, this concept, of course, it was originated some year back, to be precise, 1987, when there was a report published, Our Common Future. And that actually articulated that why we need sustainable development, not for us only, but for the future generation. Do you think that sustainable development also suffers from that? It is not our idea. It is a kind of someone else actually telling us to adopt it. Someone is actually financing us to embrace it. So my question to you is, don't we have, in Bangladesh, for example, don't we have thinking of sustainability in our culture, in our society? Or it is totally a Western thing? What do you think? Any volunteer? Do we practice sustainability? Do you know any example of that? Yes, please.
Yes, sir. Actually, there are many youth that are actually involved into saving the environment, and also in some way ensuring that everyone has some kind of job, that some kind of decent income source. I would like to shed light on the fact that I have seen some of my friends, and Alhamdulillah, even I'm included in them, that we are trying to actually reduce the landfills by, it comes under goal number 12, that where we try to reduce the landfills, and the main litter that we find in our landfills are the plastic wrappers and bottles. So by using a concept called making of eco bricks, we are trying to actually reduce that. So coming back to the point, sir, that there are many youth and experienced people that are actually involved into, filling up the targets of sustainable development. So I do not necessarily agree with the fact that it's only a Western concept.
Thank you. Thank you, Mubashira. Thank you very much for your and your friends' fantastic initiative in reducing carbon footprint reducing the waste. Thank you very much. Anyone else? I'd like to hear from another student. Are you aware of any example, not only the youth, but someone else is doing in Bangladesh? Maybe it's a traditional practice. Maybe it is in your house happening. You might not be noticing it.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Sure. To me, I think it's not only about working on a group or in an academy or somewhere. It can be personal as well. There are so many people who are trying to help people from their very limited income. Maybe they only earn 10K in a month, but they are donating maybe 1K or 2K to the people who are hungry, who do not get money. We have seen so many places, so many people who do not even say that they are helping, but they are helping from their income. And we have seen so many generations, even our tadis and nanis, they have also done it. If you have seen any neighbor who is hungry, we just go to them and give some food so that they don't stay hungry. So I guess this is also included in the sustainability goal, but yeah.
Exactly, and it contributes to the equity. Yeah. Very quickly, Mubashira, very quickly.
Yes, sir, I was saying that maybe this term sustainable development, this term was invented by the West, but then the concepts and the targets and the indicators that are included in them, we have been practicing, we the so-called developing countries are actually practicing them from long time ago.
Sure. Thank you, Mubashira. Yes, that is true. Just look into our informal sector, waste management sector. How much plastic is recycled in Bangladesh compared with Western countries? Just think of our mothers and our grandmoms. We laugh at them that they keep the jars, the glass jars as well as plastic jars. They reuse it, isn't it? So you see that the practice is already there in our house even. There are certain communities which do not fish, do not harm any animal in a particular month. There are so many different traditions out there. There are so many different traditional practices that actually allows the forest to regrow. They don't cut the shrubs that often. So it means that the point I'm trying to make that in different cultures, in different societies, the concept of sustainability is always there because people always feel that you shouldn't harm the nature if you don't need to. Definitely, you need to harvest the fish, you need to eat it or harvest the fruit, but there is no meaning of chopping down the trees for only profit. So the point I'm trying to make is that, yes, you are absolutely right, Mubashira, that the terminology or the concept might have been coined, say 33 years back, but we have been practicing it for generations after generations, for thousands of years in many cases. So the issue I'm raising here is, often we find these terminologies, these practices, these innovations. It doesn't mean that it is always have to come from outside. It is not necessarily all these new concepts, new ideas should be exogenous, originated from outside, and we are just embracing them. Sometimes these are endogenous as well. We are talking about this, we are practicing it. We need to appreciate that. And sometimes our own traditional practice can be reinvented. We need to keep our eyes open. And reading literature can give you that outlook. Let me share a quick example. One of my favorites is floating agriculture. Some of you may have seen these floating agriculture system. Are you familiar with? Let me explain it, then I will ask you if anyone has seen it. The idea is in southern Bangladesh, in Borishal, Pirojpur, Gopalganj, Madaripur, that region, coastal region, there are waterlogged condition can be seen around 6 to 8 months of the year. So you can't grow vegetables, you can't grow rice on land because it is underwater. So what a new practice was invented there. We don't know how many years ago, maybe some says 400 years back, some says 200 years back. So the idea is a floating raft will be created made up of plants. Now it is only water hyacinth, and you can grow vegetables on them. You can raise seedlings, as you can see that rice seedlings is being grown on them. On the right hand photograph is showing that. So this practice is called floating agriculture. Under climate change, it has got a new dimension. We call that it will help, floating agriculture will help us to cope with, to adapt to climate change, because due to climate change, flooding time will be, new areas will be flooded. It will be longer flooding. The flooding period will be much, much longer. So how can you cope with that? Well, go for our traditional practice. That is called floating agriculture. So that's the idea. So over the last few decades, things have changed. Let me share you this story 2. I have divided the whole history of floating agriculture into 6 phases. The first phase started maybe in 16th century or 18th century. We don't know for sure. But during that time, we used the paddy straw to make those beds because water hyacinth wasn't there. Water hyacinth is not a Bangladeshi plant. It was, in fact, intentionally introduced in 1890s, 130 years back. And now you can't believe, you may not believe that, but it is true. But within a few decades, it encroached all our wetlands. So that's why it became an integral part of floating agriculture. We moved away from paddy straw and started using water hyacinth. And we can see that it is happening since 1960s more strongly. So that is, I'm calling it phase 2. In 1990s, we are talking about floating agriculture in the media. Sheikh Siraj, he used to produce a TV program on BTV, Matio Manush. Now it is Hridoye Matio Manush on Channel 9. And he first brought it out because it was practiced in such a remote area. And NGOs picked it up. I'm calling it phase 3. And they started promoting floating agriculture as a means of nutrition, as a means of livelihood, as a means of poverty alleviation. So you can see that how a traditional practice became an intervention of NGOs. Then in 2004, another NGO introduced the floating agriculture as a climate change option, climate change adaptation option, the example that I had given in the previous slide. So it's a landmark. I'm calling it phase 4. And it became so popular that it is not only got into our national policies, but also government started investing crores and crores of taka over the last 10 years or so. And now, instead of only 4 districts, now floating agriculture is practiced in 24 districts. So you can imagine how fast it is being scaled up. And we can see lots of innovations. I'm calling it phase 6. And it is also getting global recognition. So over, say, last 60 years or so, what didn't happen in 300 years, that happened in last 50 years or even last 2 decades only. And now you can see from 2 districts or 4 districts, you can see it is now being practiced in 24 districts. What will happen in the next phase, we don't know. But this story would be brilliantly communicated by an English graduate, I believe, with passion, with a specific way of sharing the story. I, as a botanist, I might not be able to do that, but these are the fascinating things can be done, can be brought out by English graduates. I'm sure you will be able to do it fantastically. And it shows that innovation, I'm just reiterating my previous point, that innovation is not from outside, which is transferred to us, we can also have our own innovation. And this story actually talks about it. So in addition to innovation in that way, we also need to contextualize our global movement, our global approaches, global philosophy like sustainable development, sustainability. Otherwise, we will be interpreting it wrongly. We will be investing in wrong way. We will be making our budget in a very wrong way. That's why contextualization is so important, and I believe English students of English literature, English linguistics, they can do it brilliantly because contextualization is so crucial. So that's all from me. I wanted to share. Thank you very much, Professor Murtaza as well as Arif Appa for inviting me. I stop here, but I would like to leave these 4 questions to you. Feel free to share some light on these. We have touched upon some, but I just wanted to say that when we talk about sustainability, is it the individual action or the global action or the collective community action? How can we learn from the past and make our action for the future? Well, what is your thought how different disciplines should interact? And finally, what is your thought regarding innovation if we want to lead a sustainable life? That's all from me. Thank you once again. Thank you very much. Look forward to hearing your thoughts and your reflection. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us on the importance and role of the SDGs. We will be holding the second forum for the fall 2021 CI on November 25th. Please look out for the announcement. We are at the end of today's program. May I now request Ms. Aifa Goni Rahman, Head of the Department of English and Humanities, to give the vote of thanks and bring the program to a close. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Tasfia. And thank you so much to Hasib Bhai, actually, because I think that you've done a brilliant job of not only contextualizing the SDGs for our students and for us, but also showing how interconnected everything is. And I really love the slide where you showed how all these different aspects of English studies can be connected with the different SDGs. I think that was my favorite slide. And it really brought home the interconnections. And and all these examples of how we ourselves do contribute to sustainability. That was also something that we don't normally think about. So this was an absolutely brilliant session that it's actually exactly what I was thinking of, but probably wasn't able to articulate to you. But I'm so happy that you actually had this beautiful framework in which to sort of bring everything together. And I think that for our students, especially, the idea of connecting their studies with sustainable development goals, the SDGs, that is has become very clear. And I think that you've given them plenty of ideas to think about as they develop their projects. And will be, would love to, when we have the showcasing of the projects, we will definitely have you over to, help us out in maybe judging them. So that was very, very, wonderful. And I just want to thank everyone who's here tonight. We had a huge crowd, and I believe we had some of our alumni also. Not sure, but I think I saw 1 or 2 people from our alumni who joined in, as well as colleagues. And we do have Munasir Kamal here, who is going to be one of our speakers next week on the 25th. So she was very interested in, hearing the introductory speech as well. So thank you, Munasir, for being here with us tonight, and looking forward to your lecture in the next CI forum. And to everyone who joined in, thank you to my colleagues and to all the students who have joined in. And of course, thank you to Tasmia for managing, coordinating, contacting, emailing, calling, etc., for doing all that. And to Tasfia and our TAs for making sure that everything went as planned. So thank you all very much for tonight's attendance and program. Thank you. So with that, I think we will end this session. So good night, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. Thank you so much, Hasib bhai.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Take care.
Thank you,
Bye
ma'am.
for
Thank
now.
you, sir.
Thank you,
Thank you,
everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, sir.
sir.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir.
হাকিম ভাই আপনি বন্ধ করে দিতে পারেন এদিকে